When Maureen McCormick became Marcia Brady at just 14, America saw the perfect daughter, but few realized just how much the truth behind those flawless images would make you gasp. Paramount's iron grip demanded innocence, but the real Maureen was fighting battles the cameras were never meant to capture. What did the studios and the tabloids hide behind the brightest smile on television? The answer will change how you see Marcia Brady forever. In 1969, a casting call drew more than 1,000 hopefuls to Paramount's lot, all chasing the same dream. Among them stood Maureen McCormick, just 13, whose wide smile and natural warmth caught the eyes of producers searching for the perfect Marcia Brady. Born August 5, 1956, in Woodland Hills, California, Maureen had already spent years in front of the camera. Her first taste of the spotlight came at age 6, when she won the Baby Miss San Fernando Valley contest. By the time she stepped onto the Brady Bunch set, she had weathered the chaos of 3 older brothers and the quiet ambitions of a girl who knew how to stand out. Paramount's publicity machine moved quickly. The studio's photographers, credited in every official release, arranged Maureen in crisp pastel dresses and perfect lighting. Each frame was carefully posed, every strand of hair in place, her smile always bright but never too bold. These images flooded magazines and TV guides across the country, presenting a vision of teenage perfection that seemed untouched by real life. The first official Marcia Brady portrait, stamped with both the Paramount and photographer's names, defined what the world would expect from Maureen: innocence, poise, and a flawless charm that felt both familiar and just out of reach. Behind the camera, Paramount's publicists orchestrated every detail. Maureen was introduced to America not as herself, but as the living blueprint of the all-American girl. Her youth, her discipline, and her ability to embody the studio's dream made her a household name almost overnight. The pressure to live up to those glossy photos and never let the mask slip was part of the bargain from the very first flashbulb. Teenage life on a studio set rarely followed the script. Away from the polished lights and pastel dresses, Maureen McCormick and her Brady Bunch co-stars moved through the awkwardness and rivalry of adolescence in real time. The cast, all close in age, shared inside jokes and whispered secrets between takes, but competition and jealousy sometimes simmered just beneath the surface. Moments of tension were captured in offhand snapshots. Maureen with tired eyes, or a cast gathering where smiles didn't quite reach everyone's face. These candid photos, traded among friends or tucked into family albums, revealed a reality that clashed with the studio's official story. In 1971, a personal photo surfaced that hadn't passed through Paramount's publicity filter. It showed Maureen in a relaxed pose, older than her on-screen self, her expression unguarded. The image, taken by a friend during a rare off day, found its way into the hands of a tabloid eager for something unscripted. The headline hinted at scandal, but the real shock was how ordinary the photo seemed. A teenager growing up, caught in a moment that didn't fit the all-American mold. Paramount's response was immediate. Studio executives summoned Maureen and her parents, reminding them of her public image contract and the risks of stepping outside the lines. The message was clear. Even a fleeting glimpse of real adolescence could threaten the carefully built fantasy. For Maureen, the reprimand left a mark. She later described the fear and shame that followed, the sense that one honest moment could unravel everything. From that point, every personal interaction and private snapshot felt like it might be ammunition for the press. The walls between her true self and Marcia Brady grew taller, and the stakes of each misstep only increased. Paramount's contracts spelled out the boundaries for every cast member, but especially for Maureen McCormick. Legal clauses gave the studio full control over her public image. Every photograph, every magazine spread, every promotional still required written approval from the publicity office. The fine print left nothing to chance. Any image distributed for commercial use had to be cleared by Paramount, and unsanctioned photos could mean a breach of contract. In practice, this meant Maureen's likeness became studio property the moment she stepped on set. Once a photo was selected, it entered a retouching pipeline that left no trace of the ordinary. Studio art directors reviewed contact sheets, marking up negatives with instructions for in-house retouchers. Airbrushing smoothed away freckles, erased blemishes, and brightened tired eyes. Skin tones were evened, stray hairs removed, and backgrounds blurred to keep the focus on Marcia's perfect smile. Before and after stills from the archives show the transformation. Natural skin texture replaced by a flawless sheen, subtle shadows erased, every detail tuned to match the all-American blueprint. The process was methodical. Photographers shot dozens of frames, but only a handful survived the culling. Retouchers worked under strict briefs, sometimes spending hours on a single print. Paramount's distribution logs tracked each approved image, noting licensing terms and mandatory credits for both the studio and the photographer. Unapproved photos, those showing fatigue, candid emotion, or even a hint of rebellion, were locked away or destroyed, never meant for public eyes. The image of Marcia Brady was not just managed, it was manufactured, frame by frame. Maureen McCormick's public smile masked a private battle that few suspected. Days on set stretched long, and the demands of staying camera-ready left her drained. In her memoir, she writes, "I had played Marcia Brady for 5 years, but I wasn't her in any way, shape, or form. She was perfect. I was anything but that." Off-camera, candid photos from 1971 to 1974 reveal a teenager growing thinner, her eyes shadowed by fatigue. In one family snapshot, Maureen sits at the edge of a couch, arms crossed tightly, her frame lost in a sweater 2 sizes too big. Another image, taken during a break in filming, shows her staring into space, untouched lunch on the table beside her. The studio's polished portraits never hinted at the anxiety that kept her awake or the silent rituals of self-punishment that shaped her relationship with food. Behind every retouched photo lay the cost of keeping up an impossible standard, missed meals, rehearsed smiles, and the heavy knowledge that any slip could become front-page news. The pressure to remain flawless seeped into every corner of her life, turning private pain into a daily companion. For Maureen, the gap between who she was and who she had to be grew wider with each passing season. By the mid-1970s, Maureen McCormick's transformation from America's sweetheart to an independent young woman became impossible to hide. Magazine photo spreads traded pastel dresses for bold prints and smoky makeup, catching longtime fans off guard. Headlines grew sharper with every new shoot. Words like "Brady Gone Bad" and "America's Sweetheart Falls from Grace" splashed across covers, selling the story of a fallen idol. Tabloid editors, chasing circulation, seized on every image that hinted at rebellion. A daring neckline, a flash of attitude, a pose that refused to fit the old mold. Each new spread seemed to provoke another round of public outrage, with letters to editors and gossip columns questioning how Marcia Brady could ever become Maureen McCormick. The pressure was relentless. Even the most innocent attempt to assert her adulthood was twisted into scandal. The tabloid press turned her every choice into evidence of decline, fueling a backlash that followed her from magazine racks to casting rooms. For Maureen, the fight to define herself played out on newsstands, one headline at a time. By the late 1970s, Maureen McCormick's world had spun out of control. Cocaine and quaaludes replaced the routines of childhood stardom, and promises of new roles slipped away as her addiction deepened. Missed auditions, broken commitments, and mounting bills pushed her to the edge. She described this as a period of financial chaos, haunted by the fear of losing her home and the reality that her savings had nearly vanished. The threat of bankruptcy was no longer distant. it was knocking at her door. Family members, alarmed by her disappearance and erratic behavior, staged an intervention. Therapy became a lifeline, though each step forward felt fragile. Through it all, rare photos from the early 1980s capture a different Maureen. Hollow-eyed, distant, but still clinging to hope. In 1995, at a Brady Bunch reunion, a new image surfaced. Maureen, smiling beside her former castmates, the weight of survival visible but softened. The journey from chaos to that moment was far from over, but the first light had broken through. In 1969, Maureen McCormick was cast as Marcia Brady at just 14. Her image was shaped by studio contracts and carefully edited photos. The evidence shows that Paramount enforced strict rules, no public dating, no wardrobe mistakes, and required retouching of all promotional images. Behind these controls, private photos and McCormick's own memoirs reveal the personal cost: exhaustion, anxiety, and a long struggle with self-image and addiction. While there is no verified record of a leaked photo nearly ending her career, the strain of upholding Marcia's perfection is well documented. Some records, including financial details from her most difficult years, remain private. Today, images from reunions and candid family moments show a woman who has reclaimed her story. Maureen McCormick's journey makes clear that Hollywood's obsession with image can leave deep scars. Yet the real story, preserved in archival photos and her own words, shows that truth is more powerful and more lasting than any fantasy ever created for the screen.
The world watched her become a household name as the lovable, wholesome Ellie Mae Clampett on the Beverly Hillbillies. But there was so much more to Donna than the iconic character she portrayed. Men adored her not just for her beauty or her on-screen charm, but for qualities that went beyond the surface. From her entrepreneurial ventures to her natural charm, Donna Douglas left a lasting impression on everyone she met. So, why did men, along with countless women, fall in love with her? Let's take a deeper look at the traits that made Donna Douglas not just a star, but an unforgettable icon. She was the girl next door. Donna Douglas had that vibe you just couldn't resist, the kind of charm that made her feel like the girl next door. And by that, I mean she wasn't trying to be anything she wasn't. She was just real. And that made her so easy to like. No fake airs, no pretenses, just pure, genuine goodness. Take her role as Ellie Mae Clampett in The Beverly Hillbillies. Ellie Mae was the embodiment of that down-to-earth charm. She wasn't trying to be fancy or glamorous. She was a fun, sweet character who was always herself. Whether she was chasing after animals or trying to help her family figure out how to deal with their new rich life, Ellie Mae was just there, doing her thing. And it was that natural warmth that made people love her. You didn't need to be someone super fancy to win hearts. Donna showed you could just be yourself and still be adored. What's cool about Donna's charm is that it wasn't forced. It didn't feel like she was putting on a show. Ellie Mae was someone who you could imagine hanging out with, someone you'd want to be friends with, you know? There was this authenticity about Donna that made her so approachable. You didn't have to try to impress people to be loved. Just being kind, genuine, and real was enough. It's the type of charm that's so easy to connect with, especially in a world where so many Hollywood stars were all about that perfect, polished image. Donna wasn't trying to be perfect. She just was who she was, and that was so refreshing. She made you feel like you could be her friend without all the glam and glitter. She didn't need to be someone you couldn't relate to. She was just herself, and that's what made her so special. She had this way of making you feel like you belonged, like she was the kind of person you could sit down with and have a genuine conversation. And let's be real, who doesn't want that in a friend or a star? Donna had this natural ability to make people feel at ease, like she was one of us. She wasn't trying to be a bigger-than-life star. She just let her true, kind nature shine through. And honestly, that's a pretty rare thing in Hollywood. It's the kind of charm that makes you admire someone, not because they're perfect, but because they're so refreshingly real. Her girl-next-door vibe wasn't just a character trait, it was her. That realness made her stand out in a time when a lot of stars were caught up in the whole untouchable vibe. Donna was someone who didn't need to be larger than life to be adored. She showed us that being kind, relatable, and just yourself could make you unforgettable. That's why men and women alike couldn't help but love her. She didn't try too hard. She just let her true self shine. And in a world full of glitz and glam, Donna Douglas was a breath of fresh air. Her contagious energy. Donna Douglas had this energy about her that was just contagious. You know, the kind of person who walks into a room and immediately lifts the mood? That was her. Even when playing Ellie Mae on the Beverly Hillbillies, she didn't just play the part, she became it. Her character was full of life, always bringing a burst of joy and excitement. And honestly, you couldn't help but feel the same way when you saw her on screen. Her energy wasn't just about being loud or over the top, though. It was this warm, natural enthusiasm that made you smile every time she showed up. It was the kind of vibe that made her character so lovable and approachable. Ellie Mae wasn't just the cute, sweet country girl, she was the embodiment of fun, always enthusiastic and ready for whatever came her way. That positive attitude was impossible not to get swept up in. And it wasn't just Ellie Mae where Donna's energy came through. In real life, she was known for being bubbly and full of life. She was the kind of person who made everything seem a little brighter just by being there, whether it was chatting with fans, showing up to events, or just being around her co-stars. You could feel that buzz of energy around her. It was effortless, too, not something she had to force. She just had that natural ability to make people feel good. Men and women loved that about her. Who wouldn't want to be around someone who could make any situation feel fun and exciting? Donna's energy wasn't about being the loudest or the most dramatic. It was the kind of vibe that made people feel happy just being near her. It's that kind of positivity and enthusiasm that makes people memorable, and Donna Douglas definitely left an impression with hers. Her infectious energy also gave her an edge. Even when she wasn't the lead in a scene, she had this way of bringing everything to life. Her enthusiasm could light up even the most mundane moments, making her presence impossible to ignore. You were always drawn to her, even if she was just there to support the main action. That ability to stand out in any setting, it's something people admired and loved about her. In a world where it's easy to feel weighed down by the daily grind, Donna's energy was a refreshing reminder that life can be full of joy, excitement, and fun. She made you want to keep up with her and maybe for a moment forget about your own stresses. And that's one of the reasons people just couldn't get enough of her, because her energy was the kind that left you feeling lighter and happier every time she graced the screen. Her elegance was timeless. Donna Douglas had this effortless elegance that made her stand out from the crowd. She wasn't flashy or trying to be over the top. It was a quiet, refined kind of grace that made her unforgettable. Whether she was on or off screen, she had a way of carrying herself that made you think, wow, she's classy. Take her role as Ellie Mae in the Beverly Hillbillies. Even though Ellie was the fun country girl next door, there was still an undeniable elegance in how Donna played her. Whether she was dressed in simple country clothes or playing the role of the naive but adorable hillbilly, there was a certain poise about her that made every moment feel special. She made modest clothing look chic, and her natural beauty shone through without any of the need for heavy makeup or flashy outfits. It was all in the way she carried herself. There was a quiet sophistication about her that felt timeless. In real life, this elegance wasn't something she had to work at. Donna wasn't someone who followed trends or tried to keep up with the latest fads. Instead, she had a classic sense of style that always seemed to fit her perfectly. Whether she was attending an event or just going about her day, her fashion choices were always chic without being overdone. It was this timeless elegance that made her not only beautiful but also incredibly graceful even in her more casual moments. Men loved that about her. There was something deeply attractive about a woman who didn't need to shout for attention. Donna's elegance came from within. It was in her posture, the way she spoke, the way she interacted with others. She didn't need a lot of fanfare to be noticed. She simply exuded grace, and it drew people in. What made Donna's elegance stand out even more was the fact that it wasn't about perfection. She wasn't trying to be some unattainable ideal. Instead, she was comfortable in her own skin. It was this authenticity paired with her graceful nature that gave her a rare kind of beauty, one that didn't fade with time. In a world where trends and looks change so quickly, Donna's elegance was something that never went out of style. It was a trait that made her beloved by both men and women alike, and one that made her shine in every role she took on. She was genuinely kind. Donna Douglas was the kind of person who made you feel special without even trying. She wasn't just an actress, she was genuinely kind, warm, and down-to-earth. Fans and co-stars alike always spoke about her sweetness and how approachable she was. There was nothing put on about her kindness. It wasn't a part of her image or a calculated move to gain favor. She simply had a good heart, and it came through in everything she did. But this goodness wasn't just something Donna played on screen. It reflected her real personality. She was known for being generous with her time, always taking the time to chat with fans and make them feel seen. It was clear that her kindness wasn't for show, it was just who she was. Her genuine warmth and caring nature extended beyond the set and into her everyday life. Donna was someone who looked out for people, and that was true in her interactions with both her colleagues and the public. She didn't need to be the center of attention. She was content just making those around her feel happy and valued. Whether she was helping a co-star, chatting with a fan, or simply being a kind person in a world that often seemed to reward the opposite, Donna's heart was always in the right place. That kind of kindness is magnetic. It's one of those qualities that makes people want to be around you. And men? They love a woman who is genuinely caring and compassionate. There's something incredibly attractive about someone who makes others feel good about themselves. Donna's genuine kindness wasn't just limited to the people she knew personally. It was something that radiated to everyone she met, and it's one of the reasons she was so adored by so many. Her kindness wasn't just something she showed in small gestures either. She cared about causes and people who needed help, always willing to lend a hand. It's rare to see someone who genuinely gives their time and energy to others without expecting anything in return. That's what made Donna Douglas not only beloved by those who knew her, but respected by all who came across her path. She didn't need to be a diva to be adored. Her kindness did all the work for her. And that, my friends, is a trait that never goes out of style. She was independent. Donna Douglas wasn't just a pretty face or a sweet personality. She was a woman with an unwavering sense of independence. In a time when many actresses were expected to fit a certain mold, she carved her own path. She wasn't afraid to stand up for herself or make her own decisions, and that made her all the more attractive to both men and women alike. Take her decision to pursue a career in acting. At the time, it wasn't the easiest road for a woman to follow, especially for someone like Donna, who came from a small town and didn't have the usual connections that many in Hollywood did. But she was determined. She didn't just wait for an opportunity to come to her, she went after it. And that tenacity eventually led her to the role of Ellie Mae in The Beverly Hillbillies, which became a defining moment in her career. What made Donna's independence even more admirable was the way she stayed true to herself throughout her career. In an industry that often pressured women to conform to certain standards, Donna didn't try to be something she wasn't. She didn't follow trends, and she didn't let anyone tell her who she should be. She was perfectly content with carving out her own niche and doing things on her own terms. That confidence in her own identity was magnetic. It showed that she didn't need validation from anyone else to feel worthy, and her independence didn't stop at her career. Donna wasn't afraid to make bold choices in her personal life, too. She took the time to travel, to explore new interests, and to live her life the way she saw fit. She was never the type to be overly reliant on others or to let circumstances dictate her happiness. Instead, she worked hard to shape her own destiny, which only made her more inspiring. Men and women respect a woman who knows what she wants and doesn't shy away from going after it. Donna's ability to balance her career, personal life and passions, all while remaining true to herself, was an admirable quality. It's that fierce independence that set her apart and made her even more intriguing to those who looked up to her. The fact that she didn't let anything or anyone stand in her way was one of the many things that made her so captivating. Her natural beauty. When you think of Donna Douglas, it's impossible not to think of her radiant beauty. But what made Donna stand out wasn't just her classic good looks, it was how effortless and natural she was. She wasn't the typical Hollywood glamour queen, and that was part of her charm. There was something about her beauty that felt real, down to earth, and approachable. She didn't have to put on a show to look beautiful. It was just who she was. Her beauty was part of the character's simplicity and innocence. With her bright smile, flowing blonde hair, and sparkling eyes, Donna embodied the girl-next-door image, but with a touch of elegance. Her natural beauty made her stand out among the Hollywood starlets who often leaned on heavy makeup and glamorized looks. Donna didn't need all of that to shine. She was radiant without all the frills, and it's one of the reasons why she captured so many hearts. But her beauty wasn't just about her looks. It was also about how she carried herself. She had a confidence in her own skin that made her even more stunning. You could tell she was comfortable in who she was, and that kind of self-assurance is magnetic. Whether she was on screen or off, her grace and poise added to her beauty, making her presence unforgettable. In a world where people are constantly trying to fit into unrealistic standards of beauty, Donna's natural approach was refreshing. She didn't rely on heavy makeup or dramatic hairstyles to get attention. Instead, she let her authenticity shine through, and that made her even more beautiful in the eyes of those around her. Men were drawn to her because her beauty wasn't forced. It was effortless, unpretentious, and most of all, real. Her beauty, combined with her easygoing charm, made her someone you could imagine wanting to spend time with, not just because of how she looked, but because of how she made you feel. She made beauty seem like something attainable and relatable, and that's why so many admired her. There was nothing artificial about Donna Douglas. She was as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside, and that's a rarity in the world of show business. She had strong work ethic. She was also one of the hardest working women in Hollywood. She didn't just show up for work. She gave it her all, every single time. This strong work ethic was evident in everything she did, both on and off screen, and it made her stand out even more in an industry full of stars. In all the roles she played, it wasn't just about looking cute and playing a fun, lovable character. Donna worked tirelessly to make Ellie Mae, for instance, memorable. She dedicated herself to making sure the character felt authentic, bringing warmth, humor, and real emotion to a role that could have easily been played as one-dimensional. And it wasn't just her acting skills that shone through. Donna also learned how to do many of the stunts and physical work her character required, including horseback riding and animal handling. This wasn't just about acting for her. It was about giving the audience the best version of the character she possibly could. But her hard work didn't end when the cameras stopped rolling. Donna was incredibly dedicated to her career, always seeking out new opportunities to challenge herself and grow. She didn't just stick with TV, she also appeared in movies and even had a successful career in music, releasing a couple of country albums. It was her versatility and willingness to work hard that allowed her to continue expanding her career throughout the years. And she wasn't just a workhorse in show business. Donna took that same dedication into her personal life. She worked hard to maintain a balance between her career and family life, making sure to stay grounded even as her fame grew. She understood the importance of family and was committed to her personal values, which made her even more relatable to her fans. Men admired Donna for this kind of commitment and drive. She was someone who didn't just sit back and expect success to come to her. She went out and earned it. And she didn't do it for the fame or the recognition. She did it because she truly cared about her craft and wanted to be the best at it. That level of dedication is something people can't help but respect and admire. She was down to earth. Donna Douglas had an infectious, down-to-earth vibe that made everyone feel like they were in the presence of a real, relatable person. She wasn't interested in playing the Hollywood diva or surrounding herself with a fake lifestyle. She was approachable, warm, and completely unpretentious, and that's what made her so lovable. She embodied this grounded, relatable charm. While some of her characters might have lived in a mansion in Beverly Hills, in real life, she was far from a typical spoiled, pampered rich girl. She was sweet, fun-loving, and utterly genuine. And Donna's portrayal of her was the same. She didn't put on airs, she was just Donna, the girl next door who happened to be living out a unique story on TV. Off camera, Donna was known for being just as approachable. Despite the fame that came with the Beverly Hillbillies, she never let it go to her head. She took the time to connect with her fans and had a way of making everyone she met feel important. Her sincerity and lack of ego were refreshing in an industry where fame often comes with a sense of entitlement. Donna never acted like she was above anyone. She simply treated people with kindness and respect. Her down-to-earth nature was also evident in how she lived her life. She had a no-nonsense attitude, and while she enjoyed the perks of fame, she never seemed to get caught up in the chaos that often surrounds it. She knew how to keep things real and maintained a strong sense of who she was, even as her popularity grew. It's easy to admire someone who can remain grounded when everything around them is constantly changing. For men, her humble and genuine personality was incredibly attractive. There was nothing intimidating or distant about Donna. She was the kind of woman you could imagine sitting down with, having a real conversation, and just enjoying life without any pretense. And for women? They admired her for the same reason. Donna was a role model for being true to yourself, no matter what the world throws at you. She didn't need to be anything other than herself to be adored, and that's a rare quality in Hollywood, where so many people are putting on a show. A serial entrepreneur. While many TV stars from her era let their fame define them, Donna wasn't content to rest on her laurels. She understood the power of building something lasting, beyond the spotlight, and she made sure to carve out a life that reflected her independence and business acumen. After her iconic role as Ellie Mae Clampett on the Beverly Hillbillies, Donna didn't simply fade into the background. Instead, she turned her focus to other ventures, proving that she could thrive in multiple arenas. She wasn't just a former TV star, she was a woman who could get things done. For instance, Donna turned to writing, publishing books like Miss Donna's Cookbook and Donna Douglas, the Girl Who Had Everything. She didn't just write about food or Hollywood. Her books reflected her passion for sharing knowledge and connecting with people. It was clear that Donna had a creative side that extended far beyond acting. But she didn't stop there. Donna also ventured into real estate, proving she wasn't afraid to take on new challenges. In a field that required business savvy and a keen understanding of markets, Donna showed she could navigate the complexities of a competitive industry and still maintain her elegance and charm. Perhaps one of her most surprising yet impressive moves was becoming a financial advisor. In an era where many stars were at the mercy of managers and agents, Donna took control of her financial future, learning the ropes of wealth management and helping others make sound financial decisions. This wasn't just a side hustle for her. It was a full-fledged career, demonstrating her resourcefulness and her commitment to empowering herself and others. One thing is certain, Doris Day was a great actress, but she had no luck with true love. After 4 failed marriages and several ups and downs, a part of her went rogue. But first, let's get inside the life of this amazing actress and build up to her crazy intimate life. Who was Doris Day? Doris Day, born Doris Mary Ann Kappelhoff on April 3, 1922, was a force of nature in Hollywood. She was an actress, singer, and icon. She began her career in 1937 as a big band singer. In 1945, she hit it big with 2 massive hits, Sentimental Journey and My Dreams Are Getting Better All the Time. Both were with Les Brown and his band of renown. But after that, she went solo, and over the next 2 decades, she recorded over 650 songs. Yeah, she was that prolific. Now, Doris wasn't just a voice to be reckoned with. She was one of Hollywood's biggest stars in the 50s and 60s. Her film career kicked off with Romance on the High Seas in 1948, and from there, she was everywhere. She could do it all: musicals, comedies, dramas, even thrillers. In 1953, she played the legendary Calamity Jane. In 1956, she acted in Alfred Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much with James Stewart. But her comedies with Rock Hudson really turned heads, especially Pillow Talk, 1959. Their chemistry was off the charts. It earned Doris an Oscar nomination for Best Actress. She also teamed up with James Garner for two fun flicks in 1963, Move Over Darling and The Thrill of It All, and shared the screen with some of Hollywood's biggest names like Clark Gable, Cary Grant, James Cagney, Frank Sinatra, and Lauren Bacall. After her film career wound down in the late 60s, Doris didn't disappear. Instead, she jumped into TV with The Doris Day Show, 1968-1973, which was a big hit. Doris's legacy was celebrated all throughout her career and beyond. In 1989, she won a Golden Globe and the Cecil B. DeMille Award for Lifetime Achievement in Motion Pictures. In 2004, she got the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In 2008, she added a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. She even earned a Legend Award from the Society of Singers. But she wasn't done yet. Doris released her 29th studio album, My Heart, in 2011, which went on to become a top 10 hit in the UK. Not bad for someone who, as of 2020, was one of only 8 artists to be the top box office earner in the US 4 times. Doris Day wasn't just a star, she was an era all on her own. The pain behind the star. Doris Day was a walking contradiction in the eyes of the public. On screen, she was the ultimate girl next door, sunny, charming, and wholesome. Audiences loved her for her comedies and feel-good romances. They always had happy endings. She was an ideal, the perfect partner, friend, and optimist. But in real life, her story couldn't have been more different. Doris's characters found love and happiness with ease. Her own love life was messy, painful, and full of betrayal. It's almost ironic. She could convincingly play someone with it all figured out. But behind the scenes, she was struggling to find the very thing her movies were about: love and stability. She played beloved characters. But in life, those she trusted let her down. Her personal struggles made the contrast even more striking. Her 4 failed marriages and financial betrayals were no fairy tale. They were far from the picture-perfect romances Hollywood sold to her fans. It's easy to wonder if those love stories were bittersweet for her. She was creating a fantasy she could never fully experience. Yet, she never let the public see the pain she carried. Doris was a professional through and through. No matter her personal issues, she showed up with a smile. She was ready to deliver the joy that audiences expected from her. She wasn't just acting in her movies. She was also playing a role in real life, hiding her heartbreak and struggles. This stark contrast between her screen persona and her real-life challenges is a big part of what makes her story so fascinating. It reminds us that even beloved stars have unseen battles. Doris Day's life wasn't the perfect love story her movies made it seem, but her strength and resilience in the face of it all made her story just as compelling. Her imperfect love story. Doris Day's love life was nothing like the fairy tale romances she brought to life on the big screen. It was a mess behind the scenes. While she charmed audiences with her sunny personality and perfect love stories, her real relationships were messy, heartbreaking, and far from the happily ever after she portrayed. Doris was married 4 times, and each one seemed to leave her with more pain than joy. Her first husband, Al Jordan, was a trombone player and, quite frankly, a nightmare of a man. He was abusive, controlling, and insanely jealous. Things got so bad that he reportedly forced her to have an abortion. It was a traumatic experience she carried with her. Their marriage didn't last long, and for good reason. Doris had to get away from his violent temper. It was a horrible chapter in her life that she rarely talked about. Her second marriage to George Weidler wasn't much better. George was a saxophonist, and while he didn't have Al's temper, he had his own issues. George just couldn't handle Doris's rising fame. Instead of supporting her, he felt overshadowed and insecure about her success. He walked away, leaving Doris heartbroken. She wondered if she'd ever find a lasting relationship. Then came Martin Melcher, her third husband. For a while, it seemed he was the stability she had sought. Martin was a movie producer and got heavily involved in managing her career, but after his death, Doris discovered he had secretly left her in a mountain of debt. He'd signed her up for projects without telling her. He mismanaged her money, leaving her to clean up the mess. It was a betrayal that cut deep, especially coming from someone she trusted so completely. Her fourth and final marriage was to Barry Comden, a restaurant owner. He seemed like a down-to-earth guy, but even that relationship didn't go the distance. Barry was much older, and they just couldn't make it work. Doris loved her quiet life and her animals, and Barry wanted something different. It wasn't long before they went their separate ways, leaving Doris single again. The thing is, Doris wanted love and stability more than anything. She didn't seek the spotlight in her personal life. She just wanted someone to be there for her and treat her right. But time and time again, her relationships fell apart, leaving her with more heartbreak than happiness. It's wild to think about the contrast between her real life and her on-screen image. While audiences saw this cheerful, lovable woman who seemed to have it all, behind closed doors, Doris was dealing with betrayal, disappointment, and a lot of pain that most people never saw. The secret affairs. There were always whispers and rumors about secret affairs and flings with some of Hollywood's biggest names. For a star like Doris, who was marketed as America's sweetheart, the idea of her having a steamy off-screen romance was both thrilling and scandalous. But the Hollywood machine was very good at keeping those kinds of stories under wraps, and Doris herself wasn't one to air her private life. So much of it remains speculation. One of the biggest rumors always revolved around her chemistry with her male co-stars. Take Rock Hudson, for instance. Every time they shared the screen, it was pure magic. Their banter was natural, their connection electric. It made people wonder if there was something real between them. Of course, Rock Hudson was keeping his own massive secret as a gay man in a time when that wasn't accepted, so any romantic link between him and Doris was probably more fantasy than fact. Still, their friendship was genuine, and their bond was so strong that it kept fans guessing. Then there's James Garner, another leading man who seemed to have amazing chemistry with Doris. They worked together on The Thrill of It All and Move Over, Darling, and the spark between them was undeniable. James himself once said that working with Doris was like working with a close friend. But you can't help but wonder if there was ever a moment where things might have blurred a bit. They were both married at the time, so any deeper connection would have had to stay under wraps if it existed at all. And it wasn't just her co-stars. There were always quiet rumors about influential men in Hollywood being drawn to Doris. She had this natural warmth and charm that made people gravitate toward her. Whether it was a producer, a director, or some studio exec, the idea of Doris having a fling with someone behind the scenes wasn't completely out of the question. But here's the thing. Doris wasn't one to lean on the casting couch to get ahead. She worked hard for her success, and if there were affairs, they were probably more about genuine connection than career moves. The press loved Doris, but they also knew how to protect her image. Back in those days, studios controlled everything. If a juicy story about an affair started to bubble up, the PR team would swoop in and either squash it completely or spin it into something innocent. They had to protect her squeaky-clean reputation because it was such a big part of her brand. Doris wasn't the type to stir up drama, and the studio loved her for that. Even if something did happen behind closed doors, it never made it onto the front page. At the end of the day, we may never know the full truth about Doris's rumored lovers. She was fiercely private, and the Hollywood system of her time was built to keep secrets like that buried. But the speculation alone adds another layer of intrigue to her story. Whether those connections were real or just part of the Hollywood rumor mill, they show how magnetic and fascinating Doris Day truly was, both on screen and off. The hand of the studios. Doris Day's career thrived in an era when Hollywood studios had the power to control every aspect of their star's public image, and for Doris, that meant maintaining her reputation as America's wholesome, all-American girl. The studio machine went to extraordinary lengths to ensure that nothing could tarnish her image, even if it meant hiding the messy realities of her personal life. Doris was, after all, a box office powerhouse, and her brand was built on being approachable, lovable, and perfectly innocent. someone audiences could admire and trust. The studio's involvement in preserving Doris's pristine image was calculated and relentless. During her peak in the 1950s and 1960s, she was portrayed as a symbol of virtuous living, both on and off the screen. Her roles often depicted her as the good girl who resisted temptation, stood up for her principles, and eventually found love in the most wholesome way possible. But life doesn't always imitate art, and Doris's real life didn't align so neatly with the characters she played. The studios knew this and worked overtime to ensure that the public never found out. One example of this calculated image management was the way the studios handled her tumultuous personal life. Doris had 4 marriages, 2 of which were disastrous, particularly her first, to Al Jordan, who was abusive, and her third, to Martin Melcher, who left her in financial ruin. These kinds of stories could have easily sullied her public persona, so the studio's public relations teams stepped in to spin narratives that painted her as resilient and innocent, or they simply buried the uglier details altogether. Press coverage focused on her girl next door qualities, rather than the struggles she endured behind closed doors. Another tactic the studios used was outright suppression. Back in Doris's day, the tabloids and press were far more cooperative with Hollywood than they are today. If rumors of an affair or scandal began to surface, the studios would intervene, offering favors, exclusives, or even outright payments to ensure that negative stories never saw the light of day. For instance, speculation about her chemistry with co-stars like Rock Hudson or James Garner could have easily spun into salacious tabloid fodder, but the PR teams were quick to reframe these as purely professional relationships. In the case of Rock Hudson, whose sexuality was a closely guarded secret at the time, the studio machine went into overdrive to protect both his and Doris's images. Instead of letting rumors spiral, they promoted their friendship and on-screen partnership as a perfect example of platonic camaraderie, keeping anything more suggestive under wraps. Even Doris's financial troubles after Martin Melcher's death were carefully controlled in the media. Instead of letting the public dwell on how Melcher had mismanaged her finances and left her in millions of dollars of debt, the narrative was reframed to focus on Doris's resilience and determination to bounce back. Her lawsuit against her late husband's business associates and her eventual financial recovery became a story of triumph, not betrayal. What's particularly striking about all of this is how it contrasts with today's celebrity culture. In the age of social media, stars often share their lives directly with their fans, warts and all. Scandals, breakups, and even personal struggles are not only acknowledged but sometimes even leveraged for publicity. The transparency and rawness of today's celebrity world would have been unthinkable in Doris Day's time, where every detail was carefully curated to fit a brand. Doris herself was notoriously private, and while some of that was likely her preference, much of it was driven by the Hollywood system's insistence on maintaining control. Ultimately, the Hollywood cover-up wasn't unique to Doris Day, but it was particularly effective in her case because of how much her career relied on her wholesome, untouchable image. The studios were determined to keep her fans believing in the perfect Doris Day they saw on screen, even if the real Doris was dealing with heartbreak, betrayal, and personal struggles behind the scenes. It's a testament to how powerful the Hollywood machine once was, and how much it could conceal, even from the most adoring fans. From the Horse's Mouth autobiography. Doris's personal views on intimacy are one of the most fascinating and private aspects of her life. She rarely talked about it openly, but when she did, or when bits and pieces were shared by those close to her, it became clear that her experiences with love and relationships left a deep mark on how she approached trust and connection. From her autobiographies and interviews, you can piece together a sense of how complicated her feelings about intimacy were. Doris wasn't someone who wore her heart on her sleeve, but her words often hinted at a vulnerability she tried to keep hidden. Growing up in a strict, somewhat conservative household, she likely had very traditional ideas about love and relationships instilled in her early on. Yet her life experiences, especially the traumas she endured in her marriages, must have challenged and reshaped those views over time. Her first marriage to Al Jordan was a horrifying introduction to intimacy. Being forced into situations against her will, including an abortion, was deeply scarring. It's hard to imagine how such an abusive relationship didn't leave lasting emotional walls. That kind of betrayal and control can make it incredibly difficult to trust others or feel safe in vulnerability. Doris was just a teenager at the time, barely stepping into adulthood, and those formative years were shaped by fear and manipulation. As she moved on to other relationships, there seemed to be a constant tension between her desire for love and the harsh realities of what she encountered. Doris had a romantic soul. She wanted to believe in the kind of love that her characters often found on screen. But time after time, life threw her curveballs. Husbands like Martin Melcher, who deceived her financially, only reinforced the idea that trust was fragile, and intimacy often came with strings attached or hidden agendas. People close to Doris have said that she had a practical side when it came to relationships. She wasn't one to openly chase passion or whirlwind romances. Instead, she seemed to long for a steady, dependable connection. But society, particularly during her heyday, had certain expectations for women, especially someone with her wholesome image. The public loved to see her as a symbol of purity and light, and that must have been a lot of pressure for someone navigating the messy reality of relationships behind the scenes. Did she ever feel trapped by these expectations? Maybe. She lived in a time when women were often judged harshly for seeking happiness outside of traditional roles, and that might explain why Doris kept so much of her personal life tightly under wraps. There's also speculation about whether Doris sought freedom in her personal life or felt constrained by societal norms. She never seemed like the type to follow a rebellious path, but she did make bold decisions when it came to walking away from relationships that didn't serve her. Leaving Al Jordan and George Weidler took courage, especially at a time when divorce was still somewhat stigmatized. Yet, she didn't exactly push back publicly against the role society expected her to play. She quietly lived her life, making choices that protected her peace without turning it into a public statement. Through it all, Doris Day's relationship with intimacy seems to have been deeply influenced by her early traumas, her longing for real love, and the immense pressure of being one of Hollywood's most adored stars. Whether she ever fully found what she was looking for is something only she could have answered, but one thing is certain: she faced these struggles with grace, strength, and an unshakable will to keep moving forward. After Hollywood. After Doris Day retired from acting, she didn't just fade into the background. Instead, she poured herself into something that truly mattered to her: animal rights. It might surprise some people who only know her as the wholesome, singing, dancing star of the 50s and 60s, but Doris was deeply passionate about animals her entire life. She had a love for animals that was bigger than any role she ever played on screen, and that love became her next big mission. In 1978, she founded the Doris Day Animal Foundation, DDAF, an organization dedicated to protecting animals, supporting rescue operations, and advocating for better laws to safeguard animals from cruelty and neglect. She was more than just a figurehead. Doris was hands-on in her work. She was deeply involved in the foundation's efforts, working tirelessly behind the scenes, even though her Hollywood days were behind her. The DDAF continues its mission today, focusing on initiatives like rescuing animals in need, promoting responsible pet ownership, and raising awareness about the importance of animal welfare. Her foundation was her life's work after the cameras stopped rolling. Doris didn't just talk the talk when it came to animals. She walked the walk. Her personal life was full of rescues, and she had many pets over the years, including dogs, cats, and even a few horses. She was a strong advocate for adopting animals from shelters rather than buying them from breeders, and she used her platform to encourage others to do the same. She even campaigned for better living conditions for animals in zoos and circuses, areas that were often poorly regulated back then. Her passion for animals wasn't just about keeping them out of harm's way, it was also about giving them the best life possible. Doris's commitment to improving the lives of animals in shelters, advocating for animal-friendly laws, and even funding rescue organizations showed that she cared deeply about the well-being of every living creature. In fact, she once said, "I just want to help animals and be their voice," And she meant it. She also didn't shy away from using her fame to further the cause. Whether through interviews, public appearances, or her work with the DDAF, Doris brought much-needed attention to animal issues. In an era when most stars were focused on their careers or public personas, Doris was quietly making a difference. And it wasn't just a passing interest. This was something that stayed with her for the rest of her life. Her dedication to animal welfare also led to her receiving a ton of accolades and awards, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2004, which highlighted her work with animals and the impact she made off-screen. In the years leading up to her death in 2019, Doris was still an active supporter of animal rights, continuing her advocacy and working through the foundation to help as many animals as possible. From the tragic accident that almost crippled her to being turned into a punching bag by her husband while pregnant, Doris Day has no doubt gone through hell. But on TV screens, she was the perfect girl next door. Little did most of her fans know what was truly going on behind closed doors. We'll get to that. In case you don't know who Doris Day was, you're in for a treat. Doris Day, an icon. Born Doris Mary Ann Kappelhoff on April 3, 1922, she was an American actress and singer who took the industry by storm. Her journey began back in 1939 when she kicked off her career as a big band singer. Fast forward to 1945 and she hit it big with not just one but two chart-topping songs, Sentimental Journey and My Dreams Are Getting Better All the Time, thanks to her collaboration with Les Brown and his band of renown. But Doris wasn't just about the band life, she was ready to fly solo. She ditched Brown and embarked on a solo career that saw her record over 650 songs from 1947 to 1967. Talk about a powerhouse. In the 1950s and 1960s, Doris was one of the leading ladies of Hollywood. Her film career took off with the 1948 flick Romance on the High Seas, and from there she starred in a little bit of everything. Musicals, comedies, dramas, and even thrillers. Remember her as Calamity Jane in Calamity Jane, 1953? Or maybe you caught her in Alfred Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much, 1956, alongside James Stewart. She had some unforgettable on-screen chemistry with Rock Hudson, co-starring in 3 successful comedies, including the classic Pillow Talk, 1959, which even earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. And let's not forget her appearances with the likes of Clark Gable, Cary Grant, James Cagney, and Frank Sinatra. She truly shared the screen with some of the biggest names in Hollywood. But she didn't just stop at movies. After hanging up her film boots in 1968, just as her star was shining at its brightest, she launched into television with The Doris Day Show, which ran from 1968 to 1973. Doris's talent didn't go unnoticed. She snagged a Golden Globe and the Cecil B. DeMille Award for Lifetime Achievement in Motion Pictures in 1989. Then, in 2004, she received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. No big deal, right? And if that wasn't enough, she also grabbed the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2008 and a Legend Award from the Society of Singers. In 2011, she scored the Los Angeles Film Critics Association's Career Achievement Award, proving she was still in the game. Just when you thought she'd slow down, Doris released her 29th studio album, My Heart, in 2011, which was packed with new material and even hit the UK top 10. By 2020, she was one of only 8 recording artists to have topped the box office in the US 4 times. But now, to the not-so-glamorous parts, you may not have known the accident. On October 14, 1937, Doris Kappelhoff, then a bright-eyed 16-year-old dancer from Cincinnati, found herself in a starkly different world as she lay in a hospital bed at Mercy Hospital. Just hours before, she had been filled with dreams of a dazzling Hollywood future, preparing to take the leap into stardom. That dream now lay in shambles around her, shattered by a terrible car accident that had altered the course of her life. The night before the accident was supposed to be a celebration. Doris, along with her dance partner Jerry Dougherty, had just signed a 5-year contract with an organization that supplied dancers to the movie industry in Hollywood. They were ready to embark on a new adventure, leaving behind the familiar stages of the Netherland Plaza Hotel and the Cincinnati Club, where they had performed countless times. Friends had gathered for a farewell party at the home of Mr. Clarence Holden, offering well wishes and sending them off with dreams of success. Doris and Jerry felt unstoppable, fueled by the excitement of what lay ahead. But as fate would have it, the ride home from the party took a tragic turn. Doris, Jerry, and two other friends, Albert Schroeder and Marion Bonecamp, were in the car when it collided with a freight train at 5th and High Streets. The impact was catastrophic. In an instant, the bright future Doris had envisioned was turned upside down. After the crash, Doris was left lying on the parkway, surrounded by debris, her leg injured, and her dreams feeling distant. As paramedics arrived, the reality of her situation set in. "My leg is broken. My leg is broken," she cried out, her voice filled with fear and desperation as she was loaded into the ambulance. She pleaded for her mother, Alma Kappelhoff, who had planned to accompany her to Hollywood, knowing how much this meant to her daughter. In the chaos, Jerry rushed to her side, his concern palpable as he tried to assess the situation. When he realized the extent of her injuries, it broke his heart. For nearly 6 years, they had danced together, preparing for this moment, and now it felt as if everything had come crashing down. Despite the pain and fear, Doris tried to comfort him, assuring him that she would dance again. After the accident, the hospital staff examined Doris's injuries. They confirmed that she had suffered a broken leg, which would require at least 4 months of recovery. The news was a heavy blow to Doris, who had spent countless hours training in ballet and voice, preparing for her moment in the spotlight. She couldn't help but think of how close she was to achieving her dreams, only to be sidelined by this terrible accident. Doris's mother remained by her side, trying to keep her spirits up. She reminded Doris that they would have to wait until spring for their trip to Hollywood, a statement that felt like salt in the wound. Meanwhile, the other passengers, Albert and Marion, sustained various cuts and bruises but were otherwise okay, which was a small comfort in the aftermath of the crash. As days turned into weeks in the hospital, Doris grappled with her injury and the toll it took on her aspirations. While she was stuck in bed, her dreams of dancing faded like the sunlight outside her window. However, instead of letting despair consume her, Doris began to channel her energy into singing. She recognized that while her dancing career was on hold, her voice could still carry her to new heights. During her recovery, she immersed herself in vocal training, honing her talent and finding solace in music. This decision would ultimately set the stage for a remarkable transformation in her career. Just a few months later, bandleader Les Brown heard Doris's voice and recognized her extraordinary talent. He offered her a chance to sing with his band, which opened the door to her first major hit, Sentimental Journey. From that point on, Doris Day became a household name, charming audiences with her voice and her infectious smile, all the while carrying the lessons learned from that harrowing night. The accident may have altered her path, but it didn't define her. Instead, it shaped her into the iconic figure she would become, showing the world that the show must go on, no matter the obstacles. She was a fake girl next door. Doris Day was the epitome of the girl next door in Hollywood, a bright, cheerful figure who seemed to embody innocence and charm. But let's be real, that persona was a carefully crafted image, a product of what studio executives and publicists wanted to sell to the American public. Behind all that sunshine and sweetness, Doris's life was filled with struggles that didn't quite fit the wholesome package she was expected to deliver. When Doris first hit the scene in the late 1940s, she was marketed like a dream. Films like Romance on the High Seas and Pillow Talk showcased her as the perfect, lovable heroine who always ended up with the guy. And why wouldn't they want to promote that? After World War II, people were craving stories that reaffirmed traditional values, and Doris was just the gal for the job. But here's where it gets interesting. While she was playing these roles, her real life was anything but picture perfect. Even as her career took off, Doris often found herself forced into roles that didn't resonate with her true self. After her split from Jordan, she wanted to branch out and try more serious parts, but Hollywood wasn't having it. Instead, they pushed her back into those light-hearted romantic comedies, reinforcing that sweet girl image. It was like a never-ending cycle of play the part, don't rock the boat. As the years went by, Doris started to feel suffocated by the very persona that had made her a star. By the 1960s, she was a household name, but it came with a hefty price tag of public expectations. People wanted her to keep smiling, keep being that innocent, carefree woman, even as her personal life began to unravel. From marriage problems to substance abuse, the real Doris Day was a far cry from what you saw on TV, and the executives knew this and hid this from the world. She was a punching bag. Doris Day was the golden girl of Hollywood. She was often portrayed as a bubbly, cheerful persona that made her an endearing figure on screen. But behind that sunny exterior was a darker reality, one marked by a series of awful and abusive relationships that would leave deep emotional scars. Doris's first marriage to Al Jordan, a big band musician, began with a whirlwind romance that quickly devolved into a nightmare. They married in 1946, and Doris was excited about starting a family. However, as time went on, the shadows of their relationship grew longer. Al, who struggled with his own demons, reportedly became physically violent towards Doris. This was not just limited to emotional manipulation. He was known to have hit her even while she was pregnant with their son Terry. Imagine the fear and helplessness Doris must have felt, carrying a child while facing such violence from someone she had trusted and loved. The abuse took a significant toll on Doris. It was not merely a series of physical assaults. It was an all-encompassing emotional struggle. Doris had to endure feeling trapped in a marriage where love was replaced by fear. But there was also her career to think of. The pressure to maintain her public image as America's sweetheart compounded her pain. After all, how could someone so beloved be experiencing such turmoil? This facade became an overwhelming burden, forcing her to conceal her struggles while putting on a brave face for the world. But soon enough, even Doris took a stand and said, "Enough is enough." The tipping point came when Doris realized she could no longer endure the abuse. Summoning every ounce of strength, she left Al, taking their son with her. Leaving was a significant and courageous step, but it was also the beginning of a long healing process. Doris had to confront the trauma of her past while also working hard to provide for her son. The emotional scars from the abuse lingered long after she escaped the situation. It would take years of self-discovery, therapy, and self-reflection for her to reclaim her sense of self-worth. The impact of her first marriage didn't just fade away with time. Doris often spoke about how the violence she experienced shaped her views on relationships and love. Even as she found success in her career, the shadow of her past continued to follow her. For years, she struggled with trust and intimacy, fearing that any new relationship might mirror her experiences with Al. But at another attempt at love, Doris faced an equally worse fate: sleeping with the enemy. When Doris married Martin in 1951, she believed she had found a partner who would support and love her unconditionally. Martin was not just her husband. He was also her manager, guiding her career and helping her navigate Hollywood. For many years, it seemed like they were a perfect match. Doris trusted him completely, letting him take the reins on her finances and career decisions. She was focused on her work, pouring herself into singing, acting, and making films. Meanwhile, Martin was handling the business side of things, or so she thought. However, as it turned out, Martin had a darker side that Doris never fully grasped. While she was busy being America's sweetheart, he was allegedly squandering her fortune, which was estimated to be around $20 million at the time. Imagine putting your trust in someone so deeply, only to find out later that they were secretly draining your bank account. It was a betrayal of the highest order. And when Doris learned the truth after Martin's demise in 1968, it felt like the ground had been ripped out from under her. After Martin passed away, Doris began to dig into their finances, and what she uncovered was nothing short of shocking. Not only had Martin mismanaged her money, but he had also kept her completely in the dark about their financial ruin. There were no warnings, no discussions about budgeting, or even any hints that they were in dire straits. Instead, Doris found herself facing the harsh reality of almost being bankrupt. The man she had trusted most had not only betrayed her financially but also emotionally, leaving her feeling lost and alone. To add insult to injury, Martin had taken it a step further by secretly signing her up for a television series, The Doris Day Show, without her knowledge or consent. He knew that this would be a major project for her, but rather than discussing it with her, he just went ahead and made the decision on his own. Her own husband had run you into the ground financially, but he also made major career moves without consulting her. It must have been infuriating for Doris, who had built her career through hard work and determination. Eventually, Doris had to pick up the pieces of her shattered financial situation, and it wasn't easy. She found herself navigating bankruptcy and financial recovery at a time when she was also grappling with the emotional fallout from Martin's betrayal. It was a real wake-up call for her, forcing her to take control of her life in a way she never had to before. She had always relied on Martin to handle the business side, but now she needed to become her own advocate and financial manager. Despite the challenges, Doris faced this new chapter with resilience. She stepped into her role on The Doris Day Show, using it as an opportunity to rebuild her career and regain her financial footing. This series became a significant part of her life, allowing her to showcase her talent to a new generation while also helping to restore her wealth. Slowly but surely, she began to claw her way back from the brink of financial disaster. Looking back, Doris often reflected on her experiences with Martin. She learned the hard way that trust, while essential in relationships, should also be accompanied by awareness and oversight. It was a painful lesson, but it ultimately shaped her into a stronger and more independent woman. She would go on to advocate for animal rights and focus on her passions, turning the page on a tumultuous chapter in her life. She was lonely. Doris Day's life really shows that fame doesn't always come with happiness. Sure, she was the charming girl next door that everyone loved, lighting up the screen and belting out catchy tunes. But behind that bright smile, she often felt more alone than you'd think. It's a real twist, because the more popular she got, the more isolated she felt. Imagine being adored by millions but still feeling lonely at night. As Doris's star began to shine in the 50s and 60s, the pressure to maintain that perfect image only grew. People saw her as this bubbly, carefree icon, but underneath she was battling feelings of isolation. While other celebs might have thrived at glamorous parties, Doris longed for something deeper, real connections with people who got her, not just her public persona. She was in this weird position where everyone loved her, but the fame made it hard to find genuine friendships. The conversations she had often felt like they were skimming the surface, and she craved those heart-to-heart talks that could really make you feel connected. The glitzy world of Hollywood sometimes felt more like a bubble that kept her from forming true bonds. Plus, being under the media's microscope didn't help. Every little thing she did was scrutinized, and her personal life became the topic of gossip. It's like she was on a stage, but the audience only saw a performance, not the person behind the curtain. The very fame that brought her adoration also made it difficult for her to share her real self. She wanted to connect with others, but she was always worried about how people would judge her. Her romantic life added to that loneliness. Her first marriage to Al Jordan was pretty rocky, and her third husband, Martin Melcher, turned out to be a huge disappointment when it came to trusting him with her finances. Those experiences left her feeling scarred and hesitant to open up to new people. She really wanted companionship, but her past made it hard for her to trust anyone. In her quieter moments, Doris reflected on her life and couldn't shake off the sadness. She'd often say that, even with all her success, she felt a void inside. Sure, she had the fame, the fan mail, and the accolades, but none of that could replace the comfort of true companionship. At times, she just wanted someone to share her life with, someone real to lean on in a world that felt so fake. But sadly, she never had that. So she poured herself into her music and acting, maybe hoping that by sharing her feelings, she could connect with others on a deeper level. Songs like Que Sera Sera really hit home, not just for her fans, but for her too. Through her performances, she sought to bridge the gap between the dazzling Doris everyone saw and the lonely woman she felt like inside. The tragic demise. Doris Day's life took a heartbreaking turn when her son, Terry Melcher, passed away. Terry was born in 1942 during her tumultuous first marriage to Al Jordan. As a child, he was surrounded by all Hollywood had to offer, and Doris was fiercely protective of him. She worked hard to give him a stable upbringing, especially considering the chaos she faced in her own life. Terry grew up to become a talented music producer and songwriter, working with some of the biggest names in the industry, like the Byrds and Paul McCartney. He had his own share of success and seemed to be carving out a unique identity in the music world, separate from his mother's enormous shadow. Doris was incredibly proud of him and often spoke about how talented he was, which must have brought her immense joy given the struggles she faced in her relationships. However, the dark clouds of tragedy loomed over their family. In 2004, Terry was diagnosed with skin cancer, and Doris watched helplessly as her beloved son battled the disease. It was a devastating blow for her, as she had already endured so much heartache throughout her life, including abusive relationships and the pressure of fame. Terry fought hard, but the cancer took its toll, and he passed away in November 2004 at the age of 62. The loss of her son was like a devastating earthquake in Doris's life, shaking her to the core. She was deeply affected by his passing, feeling an emptiness that words could hardly describe. Doris often reflected on her relationship with Terry, emphasizing how close they were and how they leaned on each other throughout their lives. After losing him, she poured her grief into her work and her love for animals, dedicating her energy to animal rights activism. It was as if she sought to channel her pain into something positive, honoring Terry's memory by continuing to make the world a better place. What do a telegram divorce, a sabotage sisterhood, and a banned stage script have in common? Joan Fontaine. And this isn't the version Hollywood ever wanted you to hear. The girl who changed her name. She wasn't born a star. She wasn't even born Joan. In 1917, in Tokyo, Japan, she entered the world as Joan de Beauvoir de Havilland. Her British parents were upper class and proper, but Joan didn't exactly grow up in comfort. Chronic illnesses like anemia and measles made her childhood rough. Her mother moved Joan and her sister Olivia to California when the marriage fell apart. That's when the rivalry quietly began. Both sisters were drawn to acting. Olivia de Havilland jumped in first and grabbed Hollywood's attention early. Joan, still in her teens, followed close behind. But right away, she was warned. Two de Havillands wouldn't work in the same industry. So she grabbed a phone directory, scrolled through names, and picked Fontaine, after her stepfather. Just like that, Joan de Havilland vanished, and Joan Fontaine was born. Her early years in Hollywood were no fairy tale. She started with tiny roles, maids, secretaries, girls who barely got screen time. She failed so many screen tests, she once said she thought the camera didn't like her face. Studio heads weren't impressed. They called her too quiet, too soft, and not sexy enough for stardom. But Joan wasn't trying to play Hollywood's game. In interviews, she mocked the phoniness of it all. She refused to flirt her way into roles which didn't win her many friends. Then came Rebecca. Alfred Hitchcock cast her in the lead after several others backed out. Joan brought something new, nervous energy, real vulnerability, and restraint. The part turned her into an overnight sensation. Critics loved her, but she still got snubbed at the Oscars. It didn't matter. She was finally seen, and not as Olivia's sister. By the time Suspicion came around, she wasn't just another face in a supporting cast. She was the star. And when that Oscar win came in 1942, Joan didn't hold back. Her acceptance was poised, but when Olivia reached out to congratulate her, Joan brushed right past. The rivalry was real. The name change, just the beginning. Sibling rivalry goes nuclear. Hollywood has had its share of sibling drama, but none quite like Joan Fontaine and Olivia de Havilland. At first, people didn't even realize they were sisters. Different last names helped with that, but behind the scenes, the tension was always simmering, and eventually, it exploded. Their rivalry wasn't about clothes or boys, it was about fame, pure and simple. Both were talented, ambitious, and determined to win. Early on, they even auditioned for the same roles. Joan wanted Gone with the Wind, just like Olivia. She didn't get it, Olivia did. That one stung. But Joan didn't say much. Not then. Things really hit a boiling point in 1941. Joan landed the lead in Hitchcock's Suspicion. Olivia was working on Hold Back the Dawn. Both were nominated for Best Actress at the Oscars. Joan won. And when Olivia tried to congratulate her with a handshake, Joan turned and walked off stage. Some say it was nerves, others call it a straight-up snub. Joan never really explained it. Olivia never forgot it. Over the years, the Cold War between them kept growing. They stopped attending the same events. At one press function, Joan reportedly told photographers, "I don't have a sister." That line made headlines and cracked the relationship for good. At another event, they sat at opposite ends of the table and didn't say a single word. Joan's memoir, No Bed of Roses, made things worse. In it, she accused Olivia of being jealous, cruel, and controlling. Olivia fired back in interviews, calling Joan a dragon lady and a liar. They didn't even speak when their mother passed away. Joan claimed Olivia didn't tell her about the funeral. Olivia denied it. Even in their later years, when both lived into their 90s, they stayed apart. No reunion, no forgiveness, just silence. What started as a quiet competition turned into one of the ugliest feuds in Hollywood history. And the strange part? It wasn't played for the cameras. It was real, sharp, personal, and lasting until the very end. Playing the good girl with a bite. She made her name playing shy, delicate women, soft-spoken types who looked like they might cry if you raised your voice. Her characters in Rebecca and Suspicion fit that mold perfectly. But off-screen, Joan wasn't that girl. Behind the scenes, she was sharp, stubborn, and surprisingly blunt. Crew members often said she was more sarcastic than sweet. While directors expected her to stay quiet and compliant, Joan asked hard questions. She didn't flirt to get ahead and didn't care who liked her. When one producer suggested she smile more, she replied, "Why? Does it help you act better?" She smoked constantly and gambled for fun. At Hollywood parties, she told dirty jokes and made fun of studio bosses to their faces. More than once, she was asked to tone it down, especially in interviews. Her reply? "I'll speak how I speak. Don't ask if you don't want the answer." Even other actors were caught off guard. Cary Grant, who starred with her in Suspicion, once said she had a quiet steel behind her eyes. On set, she pushed back on scripts that felt lazy or roles that made her feel like wallpaper. Directors learned fast. You couldn't just place her in the background and expect her to play nice. This contrast between her screen image and real personality baffled some fans. They expected her to be soft and fragile. Instead, she came off cool and calculating. In one interview, she admitted she hated the word nice because it usually means you're forgettable. That attitude came with a price. She didn't get the same cushy roles as her peers, but Joan didn't care. "I'm not here to be liked," she once said. "I'm here to be remembered." And she was, just not for the reasons Hollywood had planned. Feuding with Hitchcock. She owed a lot to Alfred Hitchcock. Rebecca made her a star. Suspicion won her an Oscar. But don't be fooled. She didn't exactly enjoy working with him, and she definitely wasn't afraid to say so. Their relationship started off well. Hitchcock liked actresses he could shape. Joan was new, quiet, and eager for good roles. But once filming started, things shifted. Hitchcock's directing style was cold and precise. He demanded obedience. Joan didn't always give it. During Suspicion, she fought him on how her character should be played. He wanted her passive, confused, almost childlike. Joan thought the role deserved more edge. She questioned blocking, refused to cry on cue, and didn't like being handled like a puppet, as she put it. They butted heads often. Hitchcock reportedly told producers he'd never work with her again. Joan didn't care. She told friends that Hitchcock had a woman problem. He liked his actresses blonde, blank, and obedient. "I was blonde," she said, "but I wasn't going to be blank." Things came to a breaking point after Suspicion wrapped. The studio re-edited the film so that Cary Grant's character came off less threatening, and Joan's character seemed more naive. Hitchcock hated the change, but Joan refused to reshoot scenes unless her contract was renegotiated. She knew her worth, and she wasn't going to be pushed around. After that, Hitchcock moved on to other blondes. He worked with Ingrid Bergman, Grace Kelly, and Tippi Hedren. Joan was never on his call sheet again. Years later, when asked if she'd ever work with him again, Joan smirked and said, "Only if I directed." Hollywood marriages, Fontaine style. She didn't do quiet romances or picture-perfect marriages. She had 4 husbands and left each one with her signature flair. From the start, she made it clear. She wasn't looking for someone to complete her. She wanted someone who wouldn't get in her way. Her first marriage was to actor Brian Aherne in 1939. On paper, they looked perfect. In reality, Joan found him dull. She said he treated her like a chatty little girl. After 4 years, she was done. She filed for divorce, citing mental cruelty. Translation: she was bored. Next came William Dozier, a producer. They married in 1946 and had a daughter, Deborah. That didn't smooth things over. Joan once said William had a marvelous head for business except when it involved me. She'd correct him and challenge his decisions during meetings. He didn't like that. They divorced in 1951. Her third marriage was to Collier Young, the ex-husband of actress Ida Lupino. The marriage started fast and fell apart faster. Joan filed for divorce by telegram while she was traveling in Hong Kong. When asked why, she said, "Better than waiting until I got home and forgot." They stayed friends afterward, which surprised everyone. Her final marriage was to a sports writer named Alfred Wright Jr. By then, Joan was nearing 50. She said he was young and flexible, which amused her. But after 5 years, she ended it like the others, with no regret and no looking back. Joan didn't apologize for how her marriages ended. She believed in love, just not in losing herself. She once said, "The only constant in my life has been me. Everyone else comes and goes." That attitude made her hard to pin down and impossible to control. War work that raised eyebrows. While other Hollywood stars posed for war bond posters, Joan Fontaine decided to do something else, something real. When World War II broke out, she didn't just slap on a uniform for a photo op. She trained as a nurse's aide, drove military vehicles, and visited wounded soldiers in actual hospitals. Not sound stages. The public didn't quite know what to make of it. Joan joined the Hollywood canteen, sure, but she also worked with the American Women's Voluntary Services. She took part in civil defense drills, learned how to administer first aid, and even got certified in air raid protocol. One studio head begged her to stop, worried she'd get injured or ruin her star image. She ignored him. Then came Yank magazine, a publication aimed at boosting morale among U.S. troops. Joan agreed to a photo shoot, but not just any shoot. The pictures showed her in silky robes with her hair undone and her legs exposed. For the time, it was practically scandalous. The troops loved it. Middle America? Not so much. Some conservative outlets slammed her, saying it was unbecoming for an Oscar winner to pose like that. Joan didn't flinch. "If it helps a soldier get through the day," she said, "I'll wear silk." She believed glamour had its place, even in war, especially then. Joan also toured hospitals and gave speeches at army bases. She didn't just wave and leave. She sat with soldiers, held their hands, and listened to their stories. One nurse later said, "She wasn't just acting caring. She really was." Even with all this, she never stopped working. Between 1942 and 1945, she filmed multiple movies while volunteering on the side. The press didn't always cover it. Joan didn't care. "I'm not in this for headlines," she said. "I'm in it because it matters." The tell-all memoir bombshell. By the late 1970s, Joan Fontaine had stopped caring what Hollywood thought of her. So when she published her memoir, No Bed of Roses, she didn't hold back. The book wasn't soft or sentimental. It was sharp, detailed, and at times brutal. She went straight for the jugular. The feud with Olivia? It was in there, fully exposed. Joan claimed their mother always favored Olivia and described their childhood as tense and competitive. She recounted the infamous Oscar night, saying Olivia was cold and never truly happy for her success. Joan even revealed she and Olivia hadn't spoken in decades, not even after family deaths. The book didn't stop with family. Joan wrote about ex-husbands, studio heads, co-stars, and lovers, some named, some kept anonymous but clearly recognizable. One chapter hinted at an affair with a well-known director. Another took aim at an actress she claimed got roles for reasons that had nothing to do with talent. Hollywood wasn't pleased. The press called it too personal. Some accused her of exaggerating. Joan just smiled. "If it's uncomfortable," she said, "maybe it's because it's true." She also opened up about the darker parts of her life: fame fatigue, broken marriages, and loneliness. She admitted she often felt like a stranger in her own house. She didn't sugarcoat anything. "I had fame, not peace," she wrote. Critics were split. Some praised the honesty. Others said it was attention-seeking. But the book sold well and got people talking. For Joan, that was enough. What really made jaws drop was her tone. She wasn't asking for pity. She wasn't bitter. She was amused, sharp-tongued, and utterly unapologetic. When a journalist asked if she regretted writing anything, she said, "Only the parts I left out." Stage comebacks and power plays. When the film roles started drying up in the 60s, Joan Fontaine didn't fade quietly into retirement. She went back to the stage, but not as a grateful has-been. She returned on her own terms. Joan toured across the U.S. and Europe, starring in live productions of The Lion in Winter, Private Lives, and Tea and Sympathy. She wasn't just acting, she was controlling casting, wardrobe, and, in some cases, rewriting lines. Directors who didn't listen to her notes didn't last long. She wasn't interested in being a team player. She wanted results. One famous incident happened during a production of a Tennessee Williams play. Joan didn't like the script's pacing, so she changed several of her lines during live performances. When the playwright's rep complained, she shrugged and said, "Then tell him to write it better." She also demanded top billing. Always. Even if her role wasn't the lead, her name had to appear first. In one production, she threatened to walk out when a co-star's name appeared slightly larger on the poster. The theater caved. Costume designers had a hard time too. Joan was particular about fabrics, fits, and colors. If she didn't like the wardrobe, she'd bring in her own. Once, she refused to go on stage unless the lighting was adjusted to her shade of ivory. It delayed the show by 45 minutes. But she wasn't doing this just to be difficult. Joan believed theater was sacred. It was where real acting happened, where there were no second takes. She once said, "Film flatters, stage reveals." Audiences came for the drama, both on and off stage. She still had star power, and ticket sales proved it. Critics called her demanding but magnetic. Theater owners called her a force of nature. Late life eccentricity or freedom? As the years rolled on, Joan Fontaine slipped out of the spotlight, but she never slipped into normal. In her final decades, she lived in Carmel-by-the-Sea, California, far from the cameras, surrounded by dogs, books, and old film reels. Friends and neighbors called her eccentric. Joan called it peace. She spent her days gardening, painting, and writing letters to fans. But don't picture a cozy old lady in a rocking chair. Joan was still sharp, still snarky, and still very much herself. She'd host dinner parties and assign guests roles from her old films. If someone showed up late or forgot their character, she'd send them home. No second chances. Joan also had a thing for rules. Her rules. She didn't allow small talk in her home. Visitors had to be invited, not just drop in. She reportedly once turned away a journalist because they wore jeans. "This isn't a barn," she said, shutting the door. Her dogs were her real companions. She talked to them more than people and gave them names like Scamp, Dancer, and Lily Pons. She said they were better conversationalists than most actors she worked with. She left instructions in her will for how each dog should be cared for after her passing. She also kept scrapbooks, detailed journals, and boxes of personal letters, many of which offered blunt takes on old co-stars, politics, and aging. One letter to a friend read, "I don't miss fame. I miss being underestimated." Even at 90, she gave interviews with a sharp tongue. She called modern Hollywood a circus and said too many actors can't even speak clearly. When asked if she'd ever reconcile with Olivia, she replied, "If I wanted peace, I'd take a nap." The final word was hers. She died in her sleep on December 15, 2013, at age 96. She left this world the same way she lived in it, on her own terms, quietly defiant, and a little bit mysterious. She passed away in her Carmel home, with her dogs nearby and her affairs already in perfect order. No press statements, no deathbed regrets, just a quiet end to a loud legacy. Olivia de Havilland, still alive at the time, issued a short, polite statement. There was no sign of a reunion, no mention of reconciliation. The decades-long silence between them never broke. When Joan's will was released, there was no doubt the rift was permanent. Olivia was completely excluded. Instead, Joan left her belongings to close friends, longtime staff, and animal charities. Her handwritten notes were clear and direct, no drama, just decisions. Among her personal items were treasures that told the real story: early rejection letters from studios, private telegrams from Alfred Hitchcock, fan mail she never threw away, and a copy of her Oscar speech with edits scribbled in red ink. Also found was a yellowed note taped inside her desk drawer. It read, "Don't trust praise. Don't fear criticism. Trust your gut." That single line summed up her entire career. After her passing, Hollywood tiptoed around her legacy. Some praised her Oscar-winning roles. Others brought up the feud. But fans remembered the whole package: talented, stubborn, fierce, and unforgettable. Joan never softened with age. She never tried to rewrite her story to fit public taste. She said what she meant, did what she wanted, and didn't care who liked it. Even in her last interviews, when asked how she'd like to be remembered, she answered, "I wouldn't. I lived it. That's enough." No grand finale, no curtain call, just Joan, unfiltered, unbothered, and always one step outside the spotlight.
In the golden age of Hollywood, where glamour ruled and movie stars shined brightly on the silver screen, there existed a darker underbelly of ruthless ambition, bitter rivalries, and fiery tempers. Behind the dazzling smiles and polished exteriors, some of Hollywood's biggest names made enemies left and right, whether with co-stars, directors, or even their own families. In this video, we'll unravel the stories of the most hated women in old Hollywood, from the ruthless Joan Fontaine to the ambitious Anne Baxter and the scandalous Zsa Zsa Gabor. We'll delve into their notorious feuds, power struggles, and the controversies that left them despised both on and off set. How did Joan Fontaine's lifelong rivalry with Olivia de Havilland spill onto the screen? What sparked the enmity between Anne Baxter and Bette Davis during All About Eve? And why was Zsa Zsa Gabor's name synonymous with scandal? Joan Fontaine. Fontaine's most infamous rivalry was with her sister, Olivia de Havilland. Their feud was legendary, stretching back to childhood and intensifying when both pursued careers in Hollywood. It became an open secret that the two sisters despised each other, and their contentious relationship often played out in public. In 1942, the tension came to a head at the Academy Awards. Fontaine and de Havilland were both nominated for Best Actress, Fontaine for Suspicion, and de Havilland for Hold Back the Dawn. When Fontaine was announced as the winner, she brushed off de Havilland's attempt to congratulate her, leaving her sister humiliated and fuming. De Havilland never forgave Fontaine for this slight, and the sisters barely spoke for decades afterward. The rivalry was so intense that even Joan's autobiography was titled No Bed of Roses, in which she criticized de Havilland for trying to steal her roles and their mother's affection. Fontaine's feud with de Havilland wasn't the only relationship she struggled with. While working on Rebecca, Fontaine found herself at odds with her co-star, Laurence Olivier. Olivier had wanted his then-wife, Vivien Leigh, to be cast in the lead role, but Hitchcock chose Fontaine instead. As a result, Olivier was openly hostile toward Fontaine, frequently belittling her performance and criticizing her acting skills. Fontaine later recalled that Olivier was relentlessly cruel to her throughout the production. Her relationship with Hitchcock was similarly strained. Hitchcock's unconventional method of drawing out her insecurities to heighten her vulnerability on screen left Fontaine feeling manipulated and insecure. She described Hitchcock as ruthless and believed he took pleasure in keeping her on edge during filming. Despite these tensions, Fontaine's performances in Hitchcock's films earned her critical acclaim, firmly establishing her as a leading lady in Hollywood. Fontaine's reputation for being difficult extended to other co-stars as well. On the set of Jane Eyre, she clashed with Orson Welles, whom she described as pompous and intolerable. Her strained relationships with other leading ladies like Vivien Leigh and Ginger Rogers further cemented her image as a prim princess unwilling to share the limelight. Olivia de Havilland. While Joan Fontaine may have been despised by her sister, Olivia de Havilland didn't earn any love from Joan either. Born just 15 months apart, Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine's rivalry permeated Hollywood for nearly a century. In fact, de Havilland once quipped, "Our feud isn't a feud, it's a brawl," setting the tone for her turbulent relationship with her sister. De Havilland is best known for her roles in classics like Gone with the Wind, 1939, where she played the gentle Melanie Hamilton Wilkes, and her double Oscar-winning performances in To Each His Own, 1946, and The Heiress, 1949. Despite her public image as a gracious and composed star, de Havilland was known to be fiercely competitive. Her rivalry with Fontaine reached a boiling point in 1941 when she lost the Best Actress Oscar to her sister. De Havilland was visibly upset when Fontaine won for Suspicion, 1941. 2 years later, she got her revenge by taking home her first Oscar for To Each His Own, 1946. De Havilland further cemented her dominance by winning a second Oscar for The Heiress, 1949. According to biographer Charles Hyam, de Havilland once remarked, "Joan is very bright and sharp and quick-witted, but she's also very self-centered." De Havilland's combative nature wasn't limited to her sister. She famously feuded with Errol Flynn, her co-star in 8 swashbuckling adventures, including The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938, and Captain Blood, 1935. Flynn reportedly made unwanted advances towards de Havilland, calling her a cold fish for rejecting him. He later wrote in his autobiography, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, "Livy and I were like the sea and the shore, drifting slowly apart." Her battles weren't only with actors, but also with directors. She often clashed with Michael Curtis, who directed her in The Adventures of Robin Hood and Dodge City, 1939. Curtis was notorious for his harsh treatment of actors, and de Havilland was no exception. She once walked off the set in protest of Curtis's behavior, refusing to return until the studio intervened. One of de Havilland's most significant battles, however, was with Warner Brothers. In 1943, she filed a lawsuit against the studio, challenging the legality of their practice of extending actors' contracts for time spent on suspension. Known as the de Havilland Law, her victory not only won her freedom from her restrictive contract, but also revolutionized the Hollywood studio system, granting actors greater creative control. Gloria Graham. With her trademark sultry voice and alluring smile, Gloria captivated audiences as the femme fatale in films like The Big Heat, 1953, and In a Lonely Place, 1950. But behind the smoldering allure was a troubled actress whose life was riddled with scandals, making her one of old Hollywood's most controversial figures. Graham's off-screen life was often more dramatic than her roles. During the production of In a Lonely Place, her erratic behavior and disdain for her co-star Humphrey Bogart became the talk of the town. Director Nicholas Ray, who was also Graham's husband at the time, caught her in bed with his 13-year-old son, Anthony. The scandal led to their divorce in 1952, and Graham married Anthony Ray 10 years later. This notorious relationship alienated many of Graham's colleagues, including her former husband and director Nicholas Ray. Despite the turmoil, Graham continued to land prominent roles throughout the 1950s. Her performance in The Bad and the Beautiful, 1952, earned her an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, though her win was overshadowed by rumors of her behavior on set. Co-star Lana Turner reportedly refused to work with Graham again, describing her as unprofessional and a manipulative diva. Graham's relationship with directors was just as volatile. On The Big Heat, she clashed with Fritz Lang, who described her as impossible to direct due to her constant demands for script changes. Her behavior became so intolerable that Lang allegedly considered replacing her, but producer Robert Arthur insisted she stay. Despite the tension, Graham delivered one of her most iconic performances as the doomed Moll, Debbie Marsh. Further controversy erupted during the production of Oklahoma, 1955, where Graham played Ado Annie. Co-star Eddie Albert claimed that she was a nightmare to work with, frequently arriving late and demanding special treatment. Her performance was widely criticized, with New York Times critic Bosley Crowther calling her miscast and unconvincing. Miriam Hopkins. She was one of the most successful actresses of the pre-Code era. Miriam Hopkins, known for her roles in films like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 1931, Designed for Living, 1933, and The Story of Temple Drake, 1933. Her beauty and talent made her a sought-after leading lady, but her temperamental nature and fierce competitiveness made her difficult to work with. Hopkins had a notorious reputation for being arrogant and demanding, often clashing with directors and co-stars alike. One of her earliest disputes was with director Ruben Mamoulian on Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Mamoulian recalled that Hopkins was volatile and challenging, requiring constant reassurance about her performance. Despite their strained relationship, Hopkins delivered a remarkable performance that solidified her status as a rising star. Her rivalry with Bette Davis remains one of Hollywood's most infamous feuds. It began in 1939 when both actresses were cast in The Old Maid, an adaptation of Edith Wharton's novella. Hopkins was known for her theatrical style, while Davis brought a more naturalistic approach. Their contrasting acting methods led to intense on-set friction, with each actress trying to outdo the other. Davis later admitted to deliberately overacting in scenes with Hopkins to steal the spotlight. The feud escalated in 1943 when they were cast together again in Old Acquaintance. Hopkins insisted on redoing scenes multiple times, much to the frustration of director Vincent Sherman. In one memorable instance, Davis couldn't contain her rage and shook Hopkins violently during a scene, nearly injuring her. Sherman noted, "They hated each other with a vengeance." Hopkins' arrogance also put her at odds with leading men like Frederick March and Herbert Marshall. On Designed for Living, directed by Ernst Lubitsch, Hopkins constantly vied for attention with March and co-star Gary Cooper. Lubitsch found her behavior exasperating, describing her as the most difficult actress he had ever worked with. Hopkins's insecurities often led her to demand script changes and more screen time, much to the dismay of her co-stars. In The Story of Temple Drake, Hopkins played a scandalous role that brought her both acclaim and controversy. Her portrayal of the sexually assaulted Temple was considered too explicit, and the film was banned in several states. Hopkins thrived on the attention, but her risque performance also earned her the ire of conservative critics and audiences. Mae Clarke. Clarke's career was marked by both triumph and turmoil. Best known for her roles in The Public Enemy, 1931, and Frankenstein, 1931, Clarke's rise to stardom was marred by conflicts with co-stars and directors that earned her a reputation as one of Hollywood's most challenging actresses. Her most iconic moment came in The Public Enemy, where James Cagney famously smashed a grapefruit into her face. The scene catapulted Clarke to fame, but behind the scenes, her relationship with Cagney was far from amicable. Cagney later recalled that Clarke was difficult to work with due to her temper and demands for special treatment. Despite this, they went on to star together in another film, Lady Killer, 1933, where tensions again flared. Clarke's fiery personality wasn't limited to Cagney. During the production of Frankenstein, she clashed with director James Whale, refusing to film certain scenes unless changes were made to the script. Boris Karloff, who played the monster, described Clarke as headstrong and stubborn, often disrupting the shooting schedule with her demands. However, her performance as Elizabeth Lavenza was well received, and Frankenstein became one of the most influential horror films of all time. Off-screen, Clarke's relationships with other actresses were equally strained. She reportedly had a contentious rivalry with Anne Dvorak, her co-star in Three Wise Girls, 1932, over billing and screen time. Dvorak once quipped, "May was always ready for a fight, even when no one was interested." Their rivalry was exacerbated when Clarke accused Dvorak of trying to steal her role in The Penguin Pool Murder, 1932. Despite her early success, Clarke's career began to decline in the mid-1930s. Her uncooperative behavior and penchant for conflict made her unpopular among studio executives. In one notable instance, she clashed with director George Stevens on the set of The Housekeeper's Daughter, 1939, walking off the set after an argument over her lines. Stevens eventually convinced her to return, but the incident solidified her reputation as unreliable. Clarke's turbulent personal life also contributed to her fall from grace. Her first marriage to F. Scott Ames ended in divorce after just 2 years, and her second marriage to Stevens Bancroft lasted even less. By the early 1940s, Clark's star had dimmed significantly, and she was relegated to supporting roles and bit parts. Anne Baxter. Anne's portrayal of the ambitious Eve Harrington in All About Eve, 1950, remains one of cinema's most iconic performances. But Baxter's role as the conniving understudy wasn't far removed from her real-life persona, as she garnered a reputation for ambition and manipulation both on and off the screen. Baxter's rise to fame was swift. By 23, she had already won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her role in The Razor's Edge, 1946. But it was her role in All About Eve that solidified her as a star. Her on-screen rivalry with Bette Davis mirrored their off-screen tension. Davis, who played the aging actress Margot Channing, found Baxter's performance to be too over the top and accused her of trying to upstage her. Davis once quipped, "She should have been called Anne Backstabber instead of Baxter." The tension between the two led to a bitter feud throughout the production. Baxter demanded equal billing with Davis, a move that infuriated Davis and further strained their relationship. Director Joseph L. Mankiewicz had to intervene repeatedly to keep the peace, describing their interactions as volatile and charged with animosity. Baxter's ambition wasn't limited to her rivalry with Davis. She frequently clashed with directors and co-stars. On the set of The Ten Commandments, 1956, she had a tumultuous relationship with director Cecil B. DeMille. Baxter, who played Nefertiti, reportedly demanded numerous script changes to give her character more screen time. DeMille found her demands exasperating, but ultimately acquiesced to some of her requests, believing her presence would enhance the film's commercial appeal. Her co-star Charlton Heston, who played Moses, found her behavior unpredictable and temperamental. Heston noted in his autobiography that Baxter was often difficult to work with and prone to mood swings, which disrupted the production. Baxter's reputation for being manipulative also extended to her personal life. Her marriage to actor John Hodiak ended in divorce in 1953, with Hodiak citing her controlling nature as a primary reason. Her second marriage to Randolph Galt was similarly troubled, with Galt describing Baxter as impossible to live with due to her constant demands and erratic behavior. Jean Tierney. Tierney's troubles began early in her career. Despite her undeniable talent and beauty, she quickly developed a reputation for being challenging to work with. During the production of Laura, director Otto Preminger found her demanding and overly concerned with her appearance. He insisted on multiple takes to achieve the right look, which frustrated Tierney. Despite their clashes, Tierney delivered one of her most iconic performances, solidifying her status as a leading lady. Her relationship with Preminger soured further during the making of Whirlpool, 1949, where Tierney portrayed a kleptomaniac undergoing hypnosis. Preminger described Tierney as difficult and unpredictable, noting that her struggles with depression often affected her performance. Nonetheless, Tierney's nuanced portrayal received critical acclaim, though the tension between her and Preminger ensured they never worked together again. Tierney's behavior also strained her relationships with co-stars. On the set of Leave Her to Heaven, she clashed with Cornel Wilde, whom she reportedly found unprofessional and arrogant. Wilde later described Tierney as moody and distant, often refusing to speak to him between scenes. Despite the tension, Leave Her to Heaven became a major success, earning Tierney an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. Another co-star who felt Tierney's wrath was Dana Andrews, with whom she shared the screen in Laura and the Iron Curtain, 1948. Andrews claimed that Tierney's perfectionism often led to heated arguments on set, describing her as a perfectionist to the point of exhaustion. He later admitted that her mental health struggles may have contributed to her erratic behavior. Tierney's insecurities about her appearance also made her demanding with makeup artists and costume designers. Edith Head, the legendary costume designer, noted that Tierney was obsessed with every little detail of her wardrobe, often demanding last-minute changes. Makeup artist Ben Nye recalled that Tierney would frequently refuse to leave her dressing room until every eyelash was perfectly placed. Tierney's personal life was equally tumultuous. Her first marriage to Oleg Cassini was marked by infidelity and financial woes, ultimately ending in divorce in 1952. Her subsequent relationship with Prince Ali Khan, the ex-husband of Rita Hayworth, was also rocky, with the prince's family reportedly disapproving of Tierney. Paulette Goddard. Goddard's rise to stardom began with her marriage to Charlie Chaplin in the early 1930s. While Chaplin's influence helped launch her career, Her talent soon shined through in roles like the Gammon in Modern Times and Hannah in The Great Dictator. However, her marriage to Chaplin was rocky, marked by infidelities and professional rivalries. The two divorced in 1942, and Chaplin later remarked that Goddard was ambitious to a fault. Her role in So Proudly We Hail brought her acclaim, but also conflict. Goddard allegedly sabotaged her co-star Veronica Lake's performance, insisting on script changes that would favor her character. Lake later accused Goddard of conniving to steal scenes and using her charm to manipulate directors. Despite the tension, Goddard received an Academy Award nomination for her performance. Goddard's ambitious nature often put her at odds with her co-stars and directors. On the set of Unconquered, 1947, she clashed with director Cecil B. DeMille over creative control. DeMille wanted her character to appear more vulnerable, while Goddard insisted on portraying a stronger woman. Their arguments became so heated that DeMille reportedly threatened to replace her. Her relationship with co-star Fred MacMurray in Standing Room Only, 1944, was also strained. MacMurray found Goddard controlling and dismissive, claiming she often undermined his suggestions for their scenes. However, Goddard brushed off his criticism, stating, "In this business, you've got to look out for yourself." Susan Hayward. Hayward's early career was marked by determination. Born Editha Mariner, she came to Hollywood from Brooklyn in 1937, vying for the role of Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. Although she didn't get the part, she secured a contract with Warner Brothers, eventually moving to Paramount, where she starred in Bo Gesta, 1939, and Reap the Wild Wind, 1942. However, her uncompromising attitude often put her at odds with directors and co-stars. One of her most notorious feuds was with Bette Davis during the production of Where Love Has Gone, 1964. Hayward and Davis clashed over creative control, with each actress demanding top billing and rewrites to enhance their roles. Their rivalry became so intense that director Edward Dmytryk had to shoot their scenes separately to avoid confrontations on set. Davis reportedly called Hayward a pushy, demanding redhead, while Hayward found Davis pretentious and insufferable. Hayward's conflicts weren't limited to Davis. On The Lusty Men, 1952, she had a tumultuous relationship with director Nicholas Ray. Ray described her as uncontrollable and moody, often refusing to take direction and insisting on rewriting her lines. Co-star Robert Mitchum also found her difficult, calling her a temperamental spitfire. Her abrasive personality also surfaced on the set of The Conqueror, 1956, where she starred alongside John Wayne. Wayne and Hayward were both known for their strong personalities, leading to frequent arguments about their scenes. Wayne later remarked that Hayward was like handling dynamite, volatile and unpredictable. Zsa Zsa Gabor. The Hungarian-born socialite and actress, Zsa Zsa was known as much for her lavish lifestyle and glamorous image as for her acting career. While she appeared in films like Moulin Rouge, 1952, and Lily, 1953, her flamboyant personality and penchant for controversy overshadowed her roles, earning her a reputation as one of Hollywood's most notorious divas. In 1989, Gabor was arrested for slapping Beverly Hills police officer Paul Kramer after he pulled her over for a traffic violation. The highly publicized trial ended with Gabor serving 3 days in jail and paying fines and compensation. The incident solidified her image as a temperamental diva, and she made the most of the publicity, quipping, "He deserved it." Gabor's diva behavior extended to her co-stars and directors as well. On the set of Queen of Outer Space, 1958, she clashed with director Edward Burns over her character's costumes, insisting on wearing more glamorous outfits than the role required. Burns later remarked, "Zsa Zsa was always demanding special treatment and refusing to listen to direction." Her feuds weren't limited to directors. Gabor often found herself at odds with fellow actresses, particularly Shelley Winters and Eva Gabor, her own sister. Winters described Gabor as outrageous and selfish, claiming that she would throw tantrums just to get attention. Meanwhile, Zsa Zsa's relationship with Eva was strained by jealousy and competition, leading to frequent arguments both on and off set. In her later years, Gabor became known for her eccentric public appearances and notorious legal battles. She married her ninth husband, Frederick Prince von Anhalt, in 1986, and the two remained together until her death. Their relationship was marked by scandal, with von Anhalt often making outlandish claims about his heritage and adopting adult men to carry on his royal lineage.